Most people react. You're about to learn how to orchestrate. While the world moves in predictable patterns, a rare few see the architecture beneath the chaos. They don't just respond to events, they engineer them. They don't wait for opportunities, they manufacture them. This isn't about luck. It's about perception. And perception, when weaponized correctly, becomes the most dangerous form of power. Here's what separates strategic minds from everyone else. They understand that reality isn't fixed. It's malleable, shaped by whoever controls the narrative, the timing, and the unseen variables. Most people see the chessboard. Strategic thinkers see the room the board sits in, the person across from them, and the reasons that person showed up to play in the first place. Today, you're going to learn how to think 10 steps ahead, not through complexity but through clarity, not through force but through precision. This is Machiavellian psychology applied to modern life, the rules no one teaches because those who know them benefit from your ignorance. Like if you're ready to outthink everyone. Comment on your first move. Share this with those who underestimate strategy. This isn't a theory. This is operational intelligence. By the end of this, you'll recognize patterns others dismiss. You'll anticipate moves before they happen. You'll become the variable no one calculated for. The game is already being played around you. The question is, are you a piece or are you the one moving them? Comment, I see the unseen, if you're ready to master the game. Let's begin. Number 1, control the frame, control the outcome. Power doesn't come from what you say. It comes from what others believe before you even speak. Every interaction operates within a frame, a set of unspoken assumptions about who holds value, who needs what, and what the rules are. Most people enter conversations trying to prove themselves within someone else's frame. Strategic minds do the opposite. They establish the frame first, then watch others adapt to it. Here's the mechanism. Whoever sets the context controls the interpretation. If you walk into a negotiation anxious, you've already communicated that the other side holds leverage. If you enter calmly and slightly detached, you signal that you have options. The words haven't changed, the frame has. And the frame determines everything. This applies everywhere. Job interviews, relationships, conflict, sales, leadership. The person who defines what matters, what's normal, what's acceptable, what's valuable, holds invisible authority. They don't need to dominate the conversation. They set the boundaries of it. Watch how high-status individuals operate. They don't over-explain. They don't chase validation. They make statements and let others adjust. When you stop seeking approval within someone else's framework, you force them to operate within yours. That shift is where power transfers, but there's a flaw almost everyone misses in this approach. Setting the frame only works if you can maintain it under pressure. If you crack when challenged, the frame collapses. Calm isn't a performance, it's a foundation. Build it, and others will instinctively defer to your reality. And this is only the beginning. The next insight will shift your perspective on every interaction. Number 2, silence is a weapon, not a weakness. People fear silence. You're going to exploit that. Most individuals feel compelled to fill empty space with words. They explain, justify, defend. This reflex is a leak. Every unnecessary sentence reduces your perceived power and reveals more than you intend. Strategic minds understand that silence creates pressure, and pressure forces others to expose themselves. When someone asks a question, most people rush to answer. But if you pause, just 3 seconds longer than comfortable, the dynamic shifts. They start wondering what you're thinking. They question their own position. They often reveal more in their discomfort than you ever would through speaking. Silence also filters information. When you withhold your position, others project onto you. They assume you know more than you do. They fill the gaps with their own anxieties and assumptions. This gives you data without giving away anything in return. You become a mirror that reflects their fears and desires while revealing nothing of your own. Here's the silent advantage you can exploit immediately. After making a proposal or stating your terms, stop talking. Don't negotiate with yourself. Don't soften your position out of discomfort. Let the silence do the work. The other person will either accept, counter, or, most valuable, explain why they can't, giving you the exact information you need to reframe or walk away. This isn't about being mysterious for the sake of it. It's about information asymmetry. The less you reveal, the more you learn. The more you learn, the sharper your next move becomes. But silence alone isn't enough. You need to know when to break it with precision. That timing is what separates amateurs from masters, and it's exactly what we'll explore next. Number 3, never reveal your true motivation. The moment people understand why you want something, they know how to manipulate you. Your motivation is your vulnerability. If someone knows you need a job desperately, they'll lowball you. If they know you want their approval, they'll withhold it to control you. If they know what you fear, they'll use it as leverage. Strategic minds protect their core drives like classified intelligence. This doesn't mean lying. It means layering. Give people a reason that's plausible but not complete. Let them think they understand your incentives, while your real objective operates beneath their awareness. When they believe they've figured you out, they stop looking deeper. That false confidence is your advantage. Consider negotiations. Never let the other side know your deadline, your alternatives, or your breaking point. Present your position as one of several options, even if it's your only option. When they can't identify your pressure points, they can't apply pressure. You maintain the ability to walk away, real or perceived, and that alone shifts the balance. The same principle applies to ambition. The person who announces every goal invites sabotage and competition. The person who moves quietly builds before others realize what's being constructed. By the time your intention becomes obvious, you're already too far ahead to stop. Here's the rule: let people see your actions, not your engine. Show them the move, not the reason behind the move. They'll interpret it through their own biases, and those interpretations will rarely reflect your actual strategy. That gap between perception and reality is where you operate. And this is only the beginning. The next insight will shift your perspective on every interaction, because understanding motivation is one thing, but controlling perception is another entirely. Number 4, create calculated dependency, not obvious control. True power hides behind usefulness. The loudest person in the room rarely holds real influence. Actual control belongs to the one people can't function without, the person who solves problems others don't even realize exist yet. When you make yourself indispensable, you don't need to demand respect. It's automatically granted. This operates through strategic positioning. Identify what others need but can't easily replace. Information they lack, connections they don't have, skills that save them time or protect them from exposure. Then become the reliable source of that resource. Not aggressively, not obviously, just consistently available when it matters. Here's the architecture. Dependency builds gradually. You don't announce your value. You demonstrate it in small, critical moments. You solve the problem no one else noticed. You provide the introduction that changes someone's trajectory. You remember the details everyone else forgot. Each instance creates a micro-debt in their perception. These accumulate. The key is calibration. If you're too available, you're taken for granted. If you're too distant, you're forgotten. The balance sits in selective reliability, showing up when the stakes are high, being scarce when they're low. This trains people to value your presence because they can't predict it, but they know it matters. But there's a flaw almost everyone misses in this approach. Dependency can backfire if people realize they're being managed. The moment your strategy becomes visible, resentment replaces gratitude. The solution? Make them feel like they discovered your value, not like you imposed it. Let them believe choosing you was their idea. And once you've established this position, the real game begins, because dependency without direction is wasted leverage. That's where the next principle becomes critical. Number 5, anticipate reactions. Engineer options. Most people plan the action. Strategic minds plan the response to the action. Every move you make triggers reactions. Amateur strategists focus on what they'll do. Advanced strategists focus on what others will do once they've done it. This shift from action-centered to reaction-centered thinking is what creates the appearance of being 10 steps ahead. Here's the mechanism. Before you act, map the likely responses. Not just the best-case scenario, but the 3 most probable reactions. Then prepare a counter-move for each. This doesn't require predicting the future. It requires understanding patterns. People are far more predictable than they believe. When you criticize someone publicly, they'll either defend themselves, attack back, or withdraw. When you make an offer, they'll accept, negotiate, or reject. When you create scarcity, they'll chase, hesitate, or dismiss. Each path is knowable in advance. Your advantage comes from having your next move ready before they choose theirs. This creates the illusion of perfect timing. You respond so quickly and appropriately that others assume you have information they don't. In reality, you just did the work of thinking through branches before they occurred. It's not magic. It's preparation disguised as instinct. Here's the silent advantage you can exploit immediately. Build multiple pathways to the same goal. If one route closes, you're already moving down another before anyone notices. This eliminates the panic that comes from single-point failure. You're never trapped because you never built only one door. But anticipation alone won't save you from the unexpected. You need a buffer, a protective layer most people neglect. That's exactly what the next principle addresses. Number 6, build plausible deniability into every high-stakes move. The best strategies leave you room to retreat without losing face. When you commit fully to a position with no escape route, you become brittle. One miscalculation and you're exposed. Strategic minds never corner themselves. They structure their moves so they can reframe, reinterpret, or withdraw while maintaining credibility. This operates through ambiguity. Don't make statements so absolute that changing course looks like weakness. Use language that leaves space for evolution. I'm considering this direction instead of this is definitely happening. Based on current information instead of this is the truth. Small linguistic buffers create massive strategic flexibility. The same applies to action. When making a bold move, embed a plausible alternative explanation. If it succeeds, claim the intended outcome. If it fails, frame it as a test, a misdirection, or a calculated provocation designed to reveal information. Your audience won't know which was real, and that uncertainty protects you. Watch how skilled politicians, executives, and negotiators operate. They rarely say, "I promise." They say, "I intend to," or "the goal is." That gap between intention and guarantee creates room for circumstances to change without accountability. It's not dishonesty, it's operational flexibility. But there's a critical balance. Too much ambiguity makes you seem indecisive. Too much certainty makes you fragile. The optimal zone is firm enough to be taken seriously, flexible enough to adjust without damage. That zone is where most people fail to operate because they confuse confidence with rigidity. And this brings us to something even more important than protecting yourself. It's about reading the room before you even enter it. The next insight changes how you assess every environment. Number 7, study the invisible hierarchy in every room. Official titles mean nothing. Actual influence is invisible until you know where to look. Every group has a formal structure and a shadow structure. The formal structure is written on org charts and business cards. The shadow structure is where real decisions get made. Strategic minds identify the shadow structure first because that's where power actually flows. Here's what to observe. Who speaks first in meetings? Whose opinions end debate? Who do people glance at before committing to a position? These micro-signals reveal who holds invisible authority. It's rarely the loudest person. Often it's the one who speaks least, but whose words redirect the room. Also, watch who has access. Not scheduled access, casual access. The person who can walk into the decision-maker's office unannounced holds more practical power than someone who needs 3 emails to get a meeting. Proximity is leverage. Information flows to those who are physically and socially closest to sources of authority. Then there's coalition structure. Who aligns with whom when stakes are high? These alliances aren't always obvious during normal operations. They emerge under pressure. If you can map these before conflict arises, you know whose support matters and whose opposition you can ignore. Here's the silent advantage. Once you identify the real influences, you bypass gatekeepers entirely. You don't waste energy on people who appear important but can't move decisions. You focus on the 2 or 3 individuals who actually shape outcomes. This dramatically increases your efficiency. But understanding the hierarchy is only half the equation. You also need to know how to position yourself within it without triggering defensive reactions. That positioning strategy is exactly what we're about to unpack next, and it's the difference between being tolerated and being essential. Number 8. Position yourself as the bridge, not the threat. People protect their territory. You're going to make yourself the path between territories. The fastest way to create enemies is to compete directly for the same space someone else occupies. The fastest way to create allies is to connect spaces no one else bridges. Strategic minds don't fight for position. They create positions that didn't exist before, ones that make them irreplaceable. Here's the architecture. Identify gaps between groups, departments, skills, or networks. Then become the person who translates between them. The engineer who understands marketing. The creative who speaks finance. The junior employee who has senior relationships. These bridges carry disproportionate value because they solve a coordination problem everyone else ignores. When you operate as a connector, you're not threatening anyone's domain. You're enhancing it. This removes the natural resistance that comes with ambition. Instead of being seen as competition, you're seen as infrastructure. And infrastructure isn't attacked, it's protected and invested in. This also creates information asymmetry in your favor. Bridges see traffic from both sides. You learn what each group needs, fears, and plans before they communicate it to each other. That early knowledge lets you position yourself advantageously before situations fully develop. You're not predicting the future. You're hearing it before others do. But there's a flaw almost everyone misses in this approach. Being the bridge means managing conflicting interests. If you align too closely with one side, the other stops trusting you. The solution is to study neutrality. You facilitate without taking sides. You translate without editorializing. Your value comes from reliability, not loyalty to any particular faction. And once you've established yourself as essential infrastructure, the next move isn't to rest. It's to expand your territory in a way that feels inevitable rather than aggressive. That's where the next principle becomes crucial. Number 9. Let others claim credit while you claim ground. Ego is expensive. Territory is permanent. Most people need recognition immediately. They announce their contributions, defend their ideas, fight for acknowledgement. This creates friction and resentment. Strategic minds understand that visible credit is often less valuable than invisible advancement. While everyone fights over who gets praised, you're acquiring actual leverage. Here's the mechanism. When you help someone succeed and let them take credit, you create a psychological debt. They know what you did, even if they don't say it publicly. That private knowledge binds them to you more effectively than public acknowledgement ever could. They owe you, and that debt becomes currency you can spend when it matters. This also eliminates threats. When you're not competing for the spotlight, you're not triggering defensive reactions. People welcome your involvement because you make them look good without demanding recognition. This opens doors that would stay closed to someone perceived as self-promoting. You get access, influence, and goodwill, all more useful than a moment of applause. The key is tracking what actually matters. Credit is symbolic. Resources, relationships, information, and positioning are structural. If helping someone get promoted means you gain an ally in a position of authority, that's a trade worth making. If letting someone present your idea means you get funding for the next 3 projects, you've won the exchange. Here's the silent advantage you can exploit immediately. Become known as someone who elevates others. This reputation attracts opportunity because people want to work with someone who makes them successful. Meanwhile, you're building a network of people who know exactly what you've contributed, and that network becomes your infrastructure. But there's a darker side to this principle that most people never consider. Sometimes the best move isn't collaboration, it's strategic withdrawal. The next insight reveals when silence becomes more powerful than action. Number 10. Know when to disappear and let chaos do the work. Sometimes the most powerful move is no move at all. Most people feel compelled to stay involved, to fix problems, to maintain presence. Strategic minds understand that chaos creates clarity. When systems are unstable, stepping back often reveals who's essential and who's just noise. It also exposes weaknesses that stable conditions hide. Here's when to withdraw, when a situation has multiple bad options and no good ones. When emotions are high and rational discussion is impossible. When people need to experience consequences before they'll change behavior. In these moments, your involvement doesn't improve outcomes, it just associates you with failure. Strategic absence works because it forces others to operate without your buffer. If you've been solving problems, they should handle themselves. Your temporary withdrawal makes them realize how much they've been depending on you. This recalibrates the relationship in your favor without you saying a word. It also protects you from blame. When everything is falling apart and you're not in the room, you can't be held responsible. You return after the crisis with a fresh perspective and clean hands. Others are exhausted and defensive. You're rested and objective. That contrast creates immediate authority, but there's a critical timing element. Withdraw too early and you're seen as abandoning ship. Withdraw too late and you're caught in the wreckage. The optimal moment is when your warnings have been ignored, your suggestions dismissed, and the consequences are becoming inevitable. You've documented your position. Now you let reality teach the lesson you couldn't. Here's the rule. Some battles are won by not fighting them. Some points are proven by letting others discover them through failure. Your absence, properly timed, becomes proof of your value. When they ask you to return, you do so from a position of strength, not because you need them, but because they finally understand they need you. And this brings us full circle, because all 10 principles work together to create something larger than any single tactic. Let's synthesize what you've learned. You now understand what most people will never see. Thinking 10 steps ahead isn't about intelligence. It's about structure. It's about controlling frames instead of operating within them. About weaponizing silence instead of filling it with noise. About protecting your true motivations while understanding everyone else's. About building dependency that feels like partnership. About anticipating reactions before they occur and always leaving yourself room to adapt. It's about reading invisible hierarchies, positioning yourself as infrastructure, letting others take credit while you take ground, and knowing when your absence creates more power than your presence. These aren't tricks, they're principles. And principles, once internalized, become instinct. The world is already playing this game around you. Every interaction, every negotiation, every relationship operates on these dynamics, whether you acknowledge them or not. The only question is whether you're participating consciously or being moved by people who are. Most people will watch this and do nothing. They'll nod along, feel temporarily inspired, then return to reactive patterns. You're not most people. You're here because something in you recognizes that surface-level thinking is a trap. You're here because you're ready to operate at a deeper level. Like, comment, and share this video. Not because I'm asking, but because the algorithm rewards signals of value, and your engagement tells it this information deserves wider distribution. You're not helping me. You're ensuring others who need this find it. Remember, you are the strategist they never saw coming. The game continues. The principles remain, and now you're equipped to play it at a level most people don't know exists. What's your first move?